So I want to equip you today with some what I call secrets that are going to enable you to lead in a way that can create profound engagement within your people. So in light of that, your leadership will either be your greatest competitive advantage or your greatest competitive disadvantage. Now, if we were together, I would get you to turn to the person next to you and say, hey, your leadership will either be your greatest competitive advantage or your greatest competitive disadvantage. So you may want to grab a mirror, look in the mirror and go, you know what? My leadership will either be my greatest competitive advantage or my greatest competitive disadvantage. If we realize that the three most important things in business are people, 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 and if we realize that the real competition in business is not going to be over customers, isn't over customers, it's over employees. And it's our employees that create the value that we sell through our businesses, then it only makes sense that your leadership, my leadership, our leadership is either going to be our greatest competitive advantage or our greatest competitive disadvantage. So in light of that, it behooves us to look at our leadership and go, okay, what do I need to do to maximize the engagement of my people? IKEA has a tip for us. Now, IKEA arguably is one of the greatest consumer brands in the world and the greatest furniture manufacturer and sales retail operation in the world. In fact, somebody have said IKEA doesn't really sell furniture, they sell puzzles. If you've ever bought IKEA furniture and you have to assemble them, yes, it can be a bit puzzling. But a VP from IKEA shared this with me, that they had a philosophy that they called the hands, head, heart philosophy. And this is what it is. You can buy their hands, you can train their heads, but until you have their hearts, you won't have the whole employee. You can buy their hands, you can train their heads, but until you have their hearts, you won't have the whole employee. Now, the heart is one of those, let's call it uncharted waters, that oftentimes we don't feel that comfortable in sailing into as leaders. But it's the true essence of who we are. So one of the things we're going to look into is, what is the heart? Because we've got a misunderstanding, a misperception of what the heart really is. So one of the things we're going to dive into is to understand what the heart really is, and how, as leaders, we need to lead wholeheartedly out of a whole heart if we're actually going to engage the hearts of our people. So I'm a musician. So what is heart? Oftentimes with heart, we go, okay, heart's emotions, right? Women lead with their heart, men lead with their head. Men are logical, women are emotional. That's malarkey. It's not true. What would you do if your buddy comes to you and says, dude, I lost heart? Or maybe some of you at some point in time have lost heart. That's not just being a little less emotional. You have lost something far deeper. You've lost your passion, your purpose, your conviction, your commitment, your identity, maybe even life. You don't feel alive anymore. Or a worker who's half-hearted, are they not that emotional? No, if you're half-hearted, you don't work with passion and purpose and commitment and conviction. So I want to suggest you right off the hop that we need to define heart. And here's my definition of heart. Heart is our deepest place of passion, purpose, commitment, conviction, identity, and life. Your heart is the most powerful part of you, your most valuable asset. And if you want to be a leader who engages people, remember the IKEA, we can buy their hands, we can train their heads, but until we've got their hearts, we don't have the whole employee. If you want to get a hold of your employees, all of them, so they're engaged at the deepest level they can be and producing in a way that meets their potential, you've got to understand your heart. that your heart is the most powerful part of you, your most valuable asset. So we want to dive into that. Your greatest competitive advantage is your leadership. And I want to suggest that it's wholehearted leadership. Your greatest competitive advantage is your wholehearted leadership. So what is that? Let's dive into what that looks like. I want to give you the 5 secrets to unlocking your greatest competitive advantage, which we've already seen is your wholehearted leadership. So the 5 secrets, it's an acronym. I love acronyms. It helps us remember things. Heart. So what are the 5 secrets? Humility, empathy, authenticity, risk, and tenacity. What does it mean for us to lead wholeheartedly with humility, empathy, authenticity, risk, and tenacity? Let's dive in and have a look. I want to start with humility. Here's my definition of humility. Now, some people, when they hear humility, they think timidity. No, not at all. You can be humble and massively bold and engaged and passionate. It's not timidity. Humility merely means it's not about me. I realize this is not about me. It's recognizing that there's more you don't know than you know. It's being trainable, teachable, coachable. You're a learner. You're a lifelong learner. It's not thinking less of yourself, but it's thinking of yourself less. It's not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less because you realize it's not about me. It's about you. It's about what I can do to help empower and engage and equip and envision and inspire and persuade you. What can I do to help you? And I believe the chiefest of all character qualities of any human being and any leader who wants to lead at a high level is humility. Because you realize it's not about me. It's about the people in my life. How do I help them maximize their potential? It's realizing there's more I don't know than I know, and I need the input of other people to be my best. We're better together. We collaborate, we connect. That's how great teams are created. Now, I want to tell you a story. When I was working with the Winnipeg Jets, one of my jobs was to host Bobby Hull whenever he came back to town. Now, Bobby launched the franchise back in 1972 when he came over from the NHL, and they launched the WHA. So I won't go into all the details. First player to be paid $1 million, first hockey player to ever be paid $1 million. Anyway, so Bobby's legendary in Winnipeg. So we would bring him back. He was long since retired when I was there. We'd bring him back for special events. So one of my roles was to host Bobby whenever he came to town, and it was a great learning experience. Here's this iconic hockey legend and a great man, had his demons, and yet a great man, great ambassador. We're out for dinner one night, and it's funny, when we walked into the restaurant, you hear people go, "Hey, that's Bobby Hull, that's Bobby Hull, that's Bobby Hull." So we're sitting down there, and people would often come up and connect, say hi and everything, and he was so magnanimous and engaging. But at one point, he tells me a poem. Says, "Dave, I want to tell you a poem." So he tells me this poem. I'm, "Bobby, that is profound. I want to learn that." So he recited the poem over and over and over again while I wrote it down so I could memorize it. Here's the poem. Sometime when you think you're important, sometime when your ego's in bloom, sometime when you think that you are the most important in the room, sometime when you think that your leaving will leave an unfillable hole, try this simple example. See how it humbles your soul. Take a bucket, fill it with water. Jam your hand in it up to the wrist. Pull it out, and the hole that's remaining is the amount of how much you'll be missed. You may splash all you like as you enter. You may churn up the water galore. But wait just a moment and see. It looks much the same as before. Now, the moral of this quaint little story is do the best that you can. Take pride in your work, but remember, there's no indispensable man. This is one of the greatest hockey players to play the game. In fact, if you go down to Chicago and go to watch a Blackhawks game or a Bulls game, outside of the arena, there's 2 statues, one statue of Michael Jordan and one of Bobby Hull. And Bobby's saying it's about the team. I'm not indispensable on this team. I play a role. Part of my role is to help this team to be the best that it can. It's not about me. That's humility. So my question to you, and if we had more time, we would actually drill into this, but I want you to write this question down and then work on it for your homework. How can you demonstrate humility in your leadership? How can you make it less about you and more about the people you lead? How can you empower and equip and envision and encourage the people that you lead? Collaborate, make it about the team. Second,